Got business news from Stephen here now. Big business story out here in France today. A strike at oil refineries and depots continuing, and more problems, of course, inevitably from that for motorists.
Yeah, that's right. In the past few hours, police have removed striking workers from the entrance to the depot at Fos-sur-Mer near the southern city of Marseille. The blockade on that site has been lifted and tankers are now entering and exiting the refinery there. The CGT union says despite that, though, strikes are now affecting all 8 of France's oil refineries. The workers protesting changes to France's labour laws, which will make it easier for struggling companies to fire workers. Around a fifth of France's petrol stations are now running out of fuel because of the strikes. Mark Thompson has the story.
Cleared with water cannons and tear gas in the early hours of the morning. Security forces stepped in as the blockade at the Fos-sur-Mer oil depot in southern France looked to run into a third day. Both sides reported injuries from the operation. The blockade alone had caused fuel shortages at hundreds of petrol stations in the southeast of the country. Riot police also intervened at several other depots, but strike action is underway at all 8 of France's refineries over controversial labour reforms.
We're going to cause a fuel shortage. We hear from parts of the media there won't be one for 3 weeks because of the reserves. But in under a week we've had strikes all over the country and there are already shortages. They need to find some more credible lies.
Workers at the Le Havre oil import terminal have also voted to join the strike, a move which could increase disruption. Almost half the country's crude stock passes through the port. Around 20% of France's 12,000 petrol stations have already either run dry or are running low on resources. The crisis has even forced some in the northeast of the country to cross the border into Belgium in search of fuel.
I think there's easily 30 or 40% more than usual. We kind of hope it lasts, although we don't want it to be that bad.
French Prime Minister Manuel Valls has called the strike blackmail, but insists there's no reason to panic. The government says, if necessary, it has enough emergency reserves to last for 90 days.
Now, the French Prime Minister has been speaking about this during a visit to the Middle East. Speaking from Jerusalem, he says they'll continue to remove the blockades from fuel depots and that there was no question of abandoning the labour law reforms.
Let's turn to Greece now and its finances. It's going to be the main subject of a meeting of eurozone finance ministers later.
Greece is hoping to unlock as much as 11 billion euros in bailout money after passing a series of tax rises over the weekend. But the meeting will also tackle the controversial subject of debt relief. Germany in particular is staunchly opposed to any haircut on Greece's debts, but the International Monetary Fund is insisting that it would be included in the bailout agreement done last year. Ahead of the talks, the IMF called for European creditors to forego any debt payments until 2040 and to fix interest rates at 1.5%, much lower than where they are now. Those measures, though, may be difficult for some European countries to stomach.
Markets now, what's happening then?
European shares opening down, although not by much, at the start of trading this Tuesday. Car makers seeing some falls, but oil and gas shares generally trading up. No great movement in shares of the French oil company Total. Of course, we watch them in the wake of those strikes. They're trading pretty flat in Paris. Over in Asia, shares generally trading down as well. A few factors influencing that. One is investors worried about the increasing prospect of an interest rate hike in the United States. The other one is the strengthening value of the yen, making things bad for Japanese exporters. Some more of the day's business headlines for you next. Revenues at music streaming service Spotify jumped by 80% in the past year to almost 2 billion euros. But the Swedish company is still struggling to make a profit. Net losses increased by 7%. Spotify had 89 million active users at the end of last year, 28 million of whom were paying for their subscriptions. Coca-Cola's had to stop producing soft drinks in Venezuela because of a shortage of sugar. Sugarcane production has been falling due to price controls and rising costs as Venezuela faces shortages of many goods. The country's biggest brewer has also been forced to close plants due to a shortage of barley. And regulators in Singapore and Switzerland have ruled the Swiss private bank BSI committed serious breaches of money laundering rules. Singapore has withdrawn BSI's licence over its connection to misappropriation of funds from the Malaysian state investment fund 1MDB. It's already been fined more than 100 million euros over the breaches.
Let's talk about Facebook now. This is changes made to how it selects trending topics for its users.
The world's biggest social network had come under fire from a Republican senator in the United States for apparently suppressing right-wing news in its list of trending subjects. Facebook says it's retrained staff and added additional controls and oversight to the team that compiles the list. The company says an internal probe found no evidence of systemic political bias, but Mark Zuckerberg's invited several prominent conservatives to come to Facebook to explain to them how the feature works.
And have a little tour as well. Stephen, thank you very much. Stephen with Business on France 24.